Hi, this is Graham Standish, and I'm back for our final installment of talking about forgiveness. And today, I actually want to talk about the spiritual part of forgiveness. Because the reality is, we can try to break down forgiveness and talk about it only in psychological terms or emotional terms. But there is a significant aspect of forgiveness that really is purely spiritual. It's not just Christian spiritual, it's Buddhist spiritual, it is also Muslim spiritual, where forgiveness is so central to all of these religious traditions. The key is that we can't just talk about forgiveness and ignore the spiritual, because there are just times when the pain of what has happened to us is so intense. The pain of what someone else has done to us is so intense that we simply cannot muster the strength to forgive by ourselves. And this is where the spiritual part comes in. Because there are times when we can't forgive. And we also can't forget. And the pain of that acts like a shackle that just keeps us from moving forward. And there are times when we have to turn to a higher power to seek that forgiveness. One of my favorite writers of all time, one of my favorite Christian spiritual masters of all time, was a woman named Corrie ten Boom. And anybody who knows me well has heard me talk over and over again about the inspiration she was. If you don't know about Corrie ten Boom's life, she is a woman who grew up in Holland. And during World War II, she and her family hid Jews in their house in Haarlem in the Netherlands. She eventually was caught by the Gestapo along with her family. She spent months in solitary confinement and then eventually was sent to a concentration camp. It was an awful experience, terrible. And she writes about how she managed to get through that experience and get out the other side. She tells the story at the end of her book, The Hiding Place, about speaking all throughout Germany and preaching to them a message of forgiveness, telling them that God has forgiven them. And she tells the story of how at the end of one of her talks, a man came towards her that she recognized as the most brutal guard in the prison camp. And he asked her for her forgiveness. And she couldn't do it. The resentment was too intense. The pain was too intense. And yet, Corrie knew that to move on with her life, she had to forgive him. And so she simply prayed and said, God, I cannot forgive, so I need you to forgive through me. And she felt as though something was moving her hand up and placing it in his hand. And she felt love and forgiveness come through her body. The reality is that to forgive is not just psychological, it's not just relational, it's not just emotional, but it is also spiritual. And there are powers out there that will help us forgive so that we can heal. Because if you do, it helps you live a fruitful life. And remember that at Samaritan, we are always here to help you, not only to forgive, but also to move forward. Thank you for joining me this month as we've talked about forgiveness.